Welcome to the Enlighten podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Enlighten podcast. So happy to have you here with me because today I have a guest that has a tremendously powerful story to share with you. Darlene Lekowski is a survivor, speaker, advocate, and business leader who transformed her decades of pain into hope and healing for not just herself, but also others. And after 50 years of silence about the sibling sexual trauma and abuse that she endured as a child, she found the courage to speak her truth, winning a civil lawsuit brought against her by her own brother. Her debut memoir, which will be published in April of 2026, Shattering Silence, A Story of Survival, Justice, and the Power of Telling the Truth, chronicles her journey through trauma, resilience, and healing, and the courage it takes to let go in order to live forward. Darlene, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here with me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Nicole. That's quite the intro, but my story is even crazier.
Well, if there's anything that me and my audience love is a good story. And of course, it's a very tender story, one that my audience, I know there are people in my audience that are going to absolutely need to hear this, and it's important that they do. I've been very open and honest about my journey, with this sort of trauma. But today is not about me, it is about you. And this just before we kind of started to hit the record button, we were kind of just briefly chatting, and you brought up a point that I think we should really start with out of the gate because I think it's important. How common this kind of abuse actually is, because I don't think it's realized how pervasive it is globally.
Yeah. I mean, um, up until just last year, a year ago, and I'll be 60 in January, I thought I was the only one in the world that this happened to. And to your point, it is so pervasive. It is thought to be the most common form of childhood sexual abuse in the world, yet it's the least talked about because the shame of an older brother or older sister sexually abusing the younger sibling is just incredible. It's so difficult to bear. And what I found out over the last year, Nicole, is that 1 in 20 children, think about that, in a classroom of 20, one child has been sexually abused by their brother or sister. That is as common as a food allergy in a classroom, but yet nobody talks about it. And that's why I'm coming out with my story, because since I've come out, there are millions of little boys and girls who have been abused by their older siblings, but nobody talks about it. So it's time to tell the story. And since then, I've joined a number of organizations. There's so many resources out there. There's like 5 Waves, Incest Aware, SSTA Aware, and they're all on my website because probably there are some of your listeners that were sexually abused as a child, knowing these statistics and knowing how common it is. And I'd love for them to be able to have a resource to go to.
Yeah, I mean, having resources is so important. Of course, sometimes people aren't even aware that they have been until a certain point in their
Yes.
life where memories start to unlock. That's how it happened for me. So I
Hmm.
know some people are aware of it. Um, and then there are some people who have no awareness until, for me, I think the timing is right to know, or it's destined to come out at that point, or you've done enough healing that the healing now is calling forward that. There's a lot of different reasons or ways that it can surface. But you mentioned that so sibling sexual trauma is the highest. All sexual trauma is
Hmm.
horrific. What
Yes.
are some of the distinguishing factors from the victim's perspective of sexual trauma of, say, a sibling versus maybe a parent or an uncle or aunt or any kind of other authority figure?
Yeah, I think for siblings, it's so close to home. And, another statistic is being sexually abused by a sibling is 3 to 5 times more likely to happen than being sexually abused by a parent. That's how common it
Three to
is.
five more
3 to 5
times?
times more likely, yes, than a parent or an uncle. It is the most common familial sexual abuse. And it's crazy because you don't think about that. But for me and many survivors, we think about our family. Like for me, 90% of my family was good. Like I loved my life. I loved my parents. My older sister didn't abuse me. My brother, 2.5 years older than me, didn't abuse me. It was just the two middle brothers that were sexually abusing me from the ages of 7 to 12. And I chose that I didn't want to tell because I didn't want to destroy my family. That
Of
was my
course.
perception and my
Yeah.
belief. I was going to destroy them.
No, I understand. That's exactly why I stayed quiet too, was because I knew that my father would be irate, and that it would
Mhm.
cause all of this disruption within the family.
Yes.
Um, so before we really get into this, your personal story, were your brothers abused as well, or where did it come from that they would initiate that with you?
Yeah, that's what is the surprising research about SSTA. It doesn't necessarily run in families. And if they abused a sibling, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to abuse their children. And what has been found is if the younger brother or sister has been exposed to pornography, Playboy magazines, they're at that 13 to 16-year-old teenage years, they're trying to find an outlet for that sexual desire that they've been exposed to. And so therefore they target the younger sibling, the more vulnerable sibling. And most of the time, the sibling is 5 to 8 years older. And that was exactly in my case. I had one brother who was 5 years older than me, and then a second brother who was 9 years older than me, who found me vulnerable, found me when I was in the house alone. I mean, my mom had 5 kids. She wasn't always home. And so that's when the attacks happened. But luckily, I built strategies to stay out of that home as much as I could.
Okay, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's get into your story then. I'm curious. I kind of want to, before we jump all the way to the beginning, I'm curious how your adult life was shaped from that sexual trauma, and what you were dealing with as a result of that.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I'll be, especially during my college years, my early 20s. Um, I became addicted to the party, if you will, because the more people that I was around, I didn't become addicted to alcohol and drugs, but I did a lot of alcohol and drugs. Because when you put trauma in a box, trauma's going to get out no matter what, no matter how much you push that thing down, and it would bubble up, and I'd have a PTSD moment. And I didn't even know I had PTSD until 2 years ago. And the other thing that happens too, and especially happened to me, is everything I did to survive as a child. If I'm in control, then I won't get raped. If I win, I'm never going to let these brothers see me fail because they've destroyed my childhood. They're not going to destroy anything else. And when you do have those postulates of surviving as a little girl, when you're an adult, if you always have to win, your husband becomes your opponent, your children become your opponent. And so that really was destroying a lot of my relationships. And the need to be in control more and more flickered my PTSD moments. And so as an adult, it was kind of destroying my life. And I couldn't have long-term loving relationships until I was able to recognize everything that was going on with me and let it all go. That's the only way I survived all of it.
Yeah, you're saying things that I completely recognized in myself. I completely gravitated towards alcohol, not a lot of drugs. Drugs never think, you know what? There was something inside of me that kept saying, Nicole, just don't touch them because if you do, it's going to be really bad. Like there was
Yep,
something that I
me
always
too.
knew inside, and I thank God I always listened to that voice. But unfortunately, alcohol was bad enough.
Hmm.
And I certainly abused it through my late teens because in Canada we were able to drink at 19
Yep.
um and all through my 20s and even like my very early 30s still like off and on, as I was starting my healing journey. But it was also finding myself in situations with men that I'm just like, why am I here? Why is this happening to
Oh
me?
my
Why
gosh,
am I
yes.
choosing this? Because I was willfully choosing certain things and I just
Hmm.
hated myself. I hated myself that I was doing this and I couldn't understand why. I didn't know where it stemmed from.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
overall, I
because
had
you
a
didn't,
great
yeah.
childhood, like that's how I saw my childhood. I'm like, had loving parents. Yeah, we had our issues, but normal family stuff. And
Hmm.
so it's definitely, I think, an indicator that if those things are happening and you're not sure why you're acting out that way, because like you said, trauma cannot sit in a box.
Right. You think you can. You think you're doing everything you can to, get rid of it and hold on to it. And you think you're protecting everybody else. But while you're protecting everybody else, you're hurting yourself. And then it flips. The trauma flips and you start hurting all of the people around you. And that's when I really knew I had a major, major PTSD moment with my 27-year-old daughter at the time. And I realized, oh my God. And she even said it. She's like, Mom, if you don't get more help, I don't think I can have you in my life anymore because my brain had converted her to being the brother who abused me. Um, if you want me to get into the story now, Nicole, I can. If
Yeah.
you'd like. Okay. So I have a son who's now 24, and he had major marijuana and alcohol issues. So we were dealing with all of that. And she had just said to me, Mom, I can't deal with Austin anymore. I can't have him in my life anymore until he finally settles down and gets help. And we were at a restaurant and my brain converted that she's leaving her brother so that she's abandoning me. And
Mm.
so I had a major PTSD moment at the restaurant where I had lost it. I took her keys, I took her purse. We finally got out to the car, and little 7-year-old Darlene started hitting my daughter. And I'm screaming and she's screaming. And it was so tragic and so messed up that was a turning point for me that I realized I have to get help. I called a psychiatrist that very next week and realized I had what's called CPTSD, and that was a traumatic moment. I don't remember much of the argument, if you will, because I was a 7-year-old girl fighting off her older brother of 13. Sierra wasn't my daughter in that car. It was that innocent girl who thought she was getting abandoned and was going to die.
If you think you need to fly to the jungle, purge in a bucket, or take the plant medicine in order to meet the medicine frequency, you don't. And that's why I created Becoming the Medicine, where I'm going to guide you into the exact frequency of a plant medicine journey without ever using any psychedelics. You'll experience the visuals, the emotional release, and the subtle euphoria before a Kundalini awakening even occurs. So join me on January 7th for a live 8-week ceremonial portal that's going to mirror the arc of my 3-day 180 retreat, the exact journey my private clients and retreat guests experience before, during, and after a guided psychedelic journey. And if you sign up now, you're going to get instant access to Velocity Oracle, my soul decoding AI that's already collapsing timelines for my clients inside. You don't have to wait until you're ready for the jungle. You can meet the medicine frequency now from the comfort of your living room and step into the version of you who's done negotiating with your future. Oh my goodness. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was a major wake up call to have to start dealing with. So you started going to therapy. How did this all unpack? Like, I don't know if you want to share the story from the very beginning or kind of go through it as you unpacked it.
Maybe it would be helpful if we went through it for the beginning, just to give
Mhm.
your listeners kind of context of what happened. Because there's a doozy in the middle of it that
Okay.
you're going to be shocked. And there's something in the book too that you won't believe it, but we can't disclose it till the book comes out. But anyway, like I said, the abuse started when I was a little girl. Starting at age 7, really, I mean, I felt like the world betrayed me. And from ages 7 to 12, my two oldest brothers sexually abused me. Different times. They claim neither one of them knew, but they also, after every assault, threatened that I would be abandoned, that I would be orphaned, that I would be the one to blame. So I believed them. I took on that shame and said, I'm not going to tell. I believe them, and so I put that trauma in a box. But then what I did as a young girl, I created strategies to stay out of the house. I am very lucky. I know it sounds weird to say lucky, but I was only assaulted 5 to 6 times that I can remember during those 5 years. I know other survivors that were assaulted daily after school by their older brothers or older sisters. So the strategies that I built was I'm going to be super athletic. I'm going to join every sports team I possibly can because I'm out of the house. I'm going to become uber popular because the more friends that I have, the more chances I will never be alone. And that's kind of what happened too in college. That's why I became addicted to the party because being around people meant safety. And then the third strategy I did as a little girl, there was a giant oak tree in our front yard. And because I was so athletic and I was so skinny and tiny, I learned how to climb to that tree to the very top where nobody could get me. And I would just sit up there for hours. Nobody knew I was there, and I would just sing with the birds and watch the neighbors in the street. But it was just different escape tactics that I used. And then at 19, I went off to college. And I can go on about that story, but I didn't know if you had any specific additional questions about that part, Nicole.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that's so like even just the thought of a little girl spending so much time at the top of a tree just to avoid
Yeah.
being hurt and abused by her own family members is just heartbreaking. What was it? What did you as a little girl like think or remember like after the first abuse happened? Like were you confused? Were you shocked?
Mhm.
Like what was kind of going on?
Yeah. So the first brother, the one that started it all at 7, he was 9 years older than me. And I don't want to upset your listeners, but it was pretty physical.
Hmm.
Um, he never sexually assaulted me, but he forced me to watch him do things to himself. There was a moment that I get into in the book about him finding me and dragging me out of a closet. So that I thought that I could escape. And at that instant, when he dragged me out of a closet, I realized I can't escape this. I don't know what to do. He went off and got married. And then I don't know how or why the second brother started. But for me, I went from betrayal. The brother who's supposed to take care of me, the brother I'm supposed to trust, is now abusing me. And now the second brother in 1975 actually assaulted me in my bedroom. And I froze. And I feel so guilty for freezing and not screaming. And then years later, after I confronted this second brother, my mom had passed away in 2021 and my dad had dementia. I was hoping to get an apology, just validation that what he did to me, yes, he was so sorry, so remorseful. I didn't get that, Nicole. Instead, I got handed a lawsuit. He sued me for defamation for calling him a rapist because he was so afraid of the truth. And that happened in 2022. And I went through the trial process for 2 years. It was excruciating. Think
What was
about, go ahead.
what? Okay, so when this all happened and he filed a lawsuit, was there any how did his family react? Like his wife, is he still married? Like what was
That's what's so crazy. So he went out and went and got a polygraph and said, well, because I took a polygraph and passed, I'm therefore telling the truth. And I was like, dude, there's a reason why polygraphs aren't permitted in court. I took a polygraph too. I passed as well, And so he is just in such denial about what he did to me. He's still married. His wife of 25 years is still believing him because she can't admit
yeah.
that she's married to a rapist. And, part of, I guess, the difficulty of bearing my secret for 50 years, because I kept it in a box. And, we were at family gatherings together. And, they're like, well, how could you have had them there? And I was like, I was around people. I was never alone with either one of those brothers again. And so I put up with their presence in order to retain the good that I had in my life. Like we talked about, Nicole, I loved my parents. I loved my other brother and sister. I didn't want to give any of that up. So I was putting up with them being there.
How did they react when you shared this?
So, my one sister sadly passed away of breast cancer in 2008.
Mhm.
So she passed away not knowing about any of this. My mom passed away, and my dad passed away not knowing about any of this. And so, what I did, my brother and I got in an argument. That was part of the confrontation. And he wouldn't pick up the phone, wouldn't pick up the phone. So I finally texted and I just said, look, I could completely destroy your life if you'd like me to. You've got to stop treating me the way you are. And he said, go for it. So I kind of blew up the text that day. It was that 7-year-old little girl going for it and saying, oh my God, this is what you did to me. And that's what he sued me over. He sued me over the text because I was adamant that he had raped me several times. And so the very next morning, I said, well, David, I need to call him. That's the brother who's 9 years older than me. I'm going to call him because the news isn't out yet. This is just an argument between me and Don. So I called Dave and I texted him and I said, hey, can you talk? He's like, sure. So I just said, look, Dave, I have all these memories of things that you had done to me, and they've been with me since I was a little girl at 7. And he admitted to it all. He said, I'm so sorry. He was so apologetic. He gave me that validation that I needed. And I was just so appreciative. And I forgave him right then and there. And I said, I know you were a stupid teenager. And in order for me to move my life forward, I have to forgive you. But then what happened is Don, the brother who is 5 years older than me, he ends up calling everybody that night. And so after David finds out it's become public, he recants everything. So now I have two brothers saying that I'm a psychopathic liar. I have had a nervous breakdown, all the things that rapists will tell about their victims when they finally come out and tell the truth.
Wait, so your brother who admitted to it recanted it because it was going public
Yes, because it
in
became
the
public in
lawsuit?
the family.
Oh, became
Well,
public
just
in
public in the family. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Because I had followed up and I just said, I've had enough of living with the repercussions of their actions. It's time for them to live with the repercussions of their own actions. So after the argument, after it became public in the family, I sent a letter to my three brothers and I just said, look, here are the facts. Here's what happened to me. Here are the years. Here are the dates. And I just said, I hope someday you both can apologize for what you've done to me. And at the end of the letter, I even said, I love you, and I know that sounds weird but they're my brothers. And I know they did stupid things. But now, after getting sued by it, I was just like, I thought this one brother had become a good person and really he hadn't because he sued me over his lies.
Oh, so no one in your family picked up on you not being around more or you not coming home as often or as early as you used to.
Yeah, we just weren't that close of a family. I mean, I'll
Okay.
be honest with you, five kids, two
Yeah.
and a half years apart. But the only times that we were together was when it was family gatherings. And I think that was pretty common back in the 70s and 80s. My parents lived on a lake, so we would get back for Memorial Weekend, 4th of July, Christmas. So I really didn't need to have any interactions with my brothers other than that.
Mm-hmm.
My sister Diane and my brother Dale, I know we're all D's, so it gets super
Mm-hmm.
confusing, but that's, a child of the 60s.
Yeah, that's how
I did.
my mom's family's all J's.
Oh, okay,
Just
okay. Yeah,
just
it's
mix
very,
it
very
up. Yeah.
common, but I did do stuff one-on-one with my sister. She was 11 years older than me. So she was out of the house, at 17, and I was 7 when the, assault started happening. And then my brother Dale, I did do stuff with him because he was only 2.5 years older. But um, yeah, the trial just became incredibly excruciating because I had to relive my trauma
Yeah.
over again for two
Yeah.
years. And I tried to settle so much out of court, but I was at the point in my healing journey that I was like, I am not going to settle and just allow you to walk away from this anymore. You should have never come after me. And so in the negotiations, I kept saying, just pay me my legal bills that I've paid to date and I'll walk away. And during the mediation, guess what? I had like 30,000 of legal bills added up. And during mediation, guess how much he offered me to settle the trial? $1. And that was such an insult. And I
Mm.
was like, look,
Yeah,
I'll
that was
see you in court,
purposeful.
buddy. Yes, it was so ridiculous. I was like, you know what? That is such an insult. You can't even admit to what you're doing. And so we went to trial. I sat for 5 days listening to his case, the lies, and then I finally got up on the stand. I had to relive all six incidents and retell all six
What
incidents.
before we get into your
Yeah,
side, what was it
sure.
like listening to him lie in the courtroom?
It it was incredibly painful. I mean, I just had to sit there and teach myself how to breathe in and breathe out because I was not about to make any reaction so that the jury would see me and get mad at me. I'm just sitting there taking it, and tears would come down my eyes. I packed Kleenex. I mean, a jury member would look at me and I'd look away. And I just tried to be very calm and very discreet in my behavior, even though I was screaming inside.
Yeah. It's it's interesting that we're recording this today because last night I watched the P. Diddy Netflix documentary that just came out that 50 Cent and someone else collaborated to put together. And my boyfriend and I, we watched all 4 episodes. And it was really interesting to also listen to a couple of the jurors
Mhm.
and how much, I mean, obviously it's a very different circumstance in that he's a very famous, extremely wealthy person that was loved by a lot of people for his
Mhm.
music and just all of that. But listening to the way, like there was a man, one of the jurors, and both my boyfriend and I are just listening to this juror going, is he literally saying this? I almost would be, if I were him, be scared for like my not my life or safety, but like my reputation online because the way he was describing was like, well, the victim kept going back to him, so clearly, she wanted it. And I was like,
My
is
gosh.
this literally coming out of the juror's mouth? Like I just
Yes.
looked at my boyfriend. I'm like, this is insane. He goes, I know. It's absolutely insane. So,
Yeah.
and then the other girl, the way she was saying her story was like it's almost like she was excited just to be in on TV in a documentary and that she was sharing like how exciting it was to be. And I'm like, these were the jurors. No wonder he got off so
Mhm.
easily with only
Yeah,
two. I don't even know how it's possible. After this documentary, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of it, but
I haven't, but you're making me want to watch it for sure.
yeah, it was oh, it was so gross. The abuse, the manipulation, the psychological warfare that occurred was so
Hmm.
next level, so sociopathic. Like, I mean, it's
Yep,
just devil. It's the devil literally walking in human form.
I know.
And so
Yeah.
when you're saying that you had to really monitor your emotions and everything, I can understand why, based off of how just little things, because you don't know how people are, everyone has their own ideas and perceptions and frameworks that they're working from,
Yes.
like we're all different, but it just, it's got to be so difficult to not be able to just be authentic in yourself,
Mhm.
in that moment of sitting there.
Yeah, and I just think that my lawyer had warned me. He said, Darlene, I really think you have a 70% chance of winning this case because I had six people testifying for me. I had five girlfriends who had witnessed PTSD moments, and who I had confided in over the years. If I wasn't going to tell my parents, I was going to tell somebody.
Hmm.
So I had five girlfriends who were on testified for me, video testimony, because they were out of state, and one therapist. And but my lawyer had warned me. He said, "You have a great chance of winning based on what I saw in the deposition. However, you never know what a jury's going to think because your story and the pain and suffering you went through, especially with a brother or sister, could be so unbelievable and so dramatic that a jury is not going to want to believe you." But the great news is, Nicole, on So the trial started January 29th, 2024, and it ended on February 5th, 2024, after I took the stand. And in less than an hour, a unanimous jury of 12 agreed that I was telling the truth and my brother was lying, and I won the case. Oh, it was
Mm,
actually two cases. He sued me for defamation and I countersued him for defamation and slander,
okay,
and I won both.
good. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on that one
Yeah, it
because
was it was so hard. So
I
hard.
mean, th it, you can never change what happened in the past, but certain like victories like those mean a lot in your ability to move forward. So, when you were in the courtroom, were any of your family members with you?
Well, my husband was. My children were in and out of college. They had asked to come, but for me, I had asked them, guys, I absolutely love you and I greatly appreciate that you know the truth. But if you're sitting in that courtroom and I'm in the stand, I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell it all and disclose it all. So they were fully supportive of
Hmm.
that, understood that. I had told them end of May 2022, both personally, what had happened to me, because I needed to, because, my brother's out telling the family. And now I, as a mother, have to turn around and tell my children the horrible news that their mother was sexually assaulted for years. That was also excruciating to do as well. I was so ashamed.
So
But
how did they respond at first news?
yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to get into. My twins who were 22 at the time, they were just in shock. They couldn't believe it, but they're like, "Mom, we love you. We fully support you. Whatever you need, we're here for you." And then my daughter, she was at the University of South Carolina at the time. She'd come home for college so that we could go on this family spring break trip together. And I was in my office. I was scared to death. You know what I mean? I was like, what are they going to think of me? That whole, I have no self-confidence. I don't believe in myself. I'm ashamed of myself was all coming out. And my daughter, oh my gosh, it's going to make me tear up. She was, I think, the boys were 22, so she's 4 years old. So she was 26 at the time. Mom, I hear you. I believe you. But what I'm hearing is that you need to forgive yourself first.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. You are so right about that. And that just really was another healing moment to have your own daughter say that to you and recognize that, get rid of the guilt. The shame is not ours to carry, yet as victims, we do it.
Hmm. Wow, what wisdom
Oh, yes.
to come from your daughter.
Yeah, it was
It's
amazing.
and also just a gift as well for you because it's true, the shame is is so monumentally heavy beyond, I think, what you anyone really truly comprehends until the forgiveness actually starts to come in. You're like, oh, you feel the lighter, like you feel that lightness starting to, it doesn't come in all at once, it slowly starts to come in. But, shame is a very, this is a spiritual podcast. And so we talk about frequency and energy a lot. And shame is the lowest frequency on the frequency scale before death.
Yeah, yep.
And so, when you're sitting in shame, it's literally destroying you and killing you slowly. And it's so destructive to your life force, to your will, to so many, to everything.
Hmm.
So, were you, did this impact your career in any way or, um, how has that happened? Because I'm sure that if there was a lawsuit that you had to go into, that somehow it may have come out within the work environment or anything of that nature.
Yeah. The good news is, I fully disclosed it to my HR department. I asked for a 1 to 2 weeks of leave from the company, and they granted it. I didn't need to get into all the details, but they were fully supportive of that. Truth be told, I haven't gone public yet at
Okay.
my work. I haven't gone public yet on LinkedIn. That is going to happen a month before the book comes out because
Okay.
I have a 35-year career in sales and marketing. And remember those survivor skills that I was talking about? You know, always having to win, never letting anybody see me lose. That's been really, really good for me in sales because that's my job. But in the other parts of my life, it wasn't so good,
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I've been holding it together, and I've even submitted my memoir to my company, and they're reviewing it just to make sure there's no conflict of interest. But it's great to have that corporate support.
I will say, Darlene, that when you do go public with your work, and I know you've just said that the survival skills served you in your job and how the work that you do.
Hmm.
But I promise you, you will find that you are even better at what you do when you're holding a more authentic um, vibration within yourself,
Yeah.
your creative flow, your honesty. Your whole energy is going to change and it's going to give you more power. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at how much it actually changes even your work in a positive way.
And I think that's so true. Even I've gone 3/4 of the way, if it makes sense. I went public April of 2024 in on Siblings Day during Sexual Awareness Month last year. I've been speaking on podcasts like this. But what I really realized, Nicole, and I really liked how you went into duality because that's part of the healing journey that I've had to go through. And I truly believe that I'm a spiritual being. I am not this body. And if we all believe that we are spiritual beings, what I've come to realize is nobody can touch your soul. They can try to mess with you mentally. They can try to mess with you physically. They destroyed my childhood. But if you truly believe that you're a spiritual being, nobody can touch that. Nobody can touch you. So then I had to turn around and let go of all of the things that were holding me back. The anger, the resentment, the bitterness. I mean, I'm sure anger is way down in the tone scale too, just like
Actually,
shame
it's
is.
actually higher than most people think.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually I'll say it. Of all the emotions that people are scared to work with, anger is probably one of your most powerful emotions to work with because it's
Interesting.
not that far down from becoming constructive.
Oh, well, that's great to know,
It's way higher than fear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
hmm
when I had fear and shame and all that for many, many years, but where I've really opened up, and even my husband and my children are like, "Mom, you're such a different person," is by realizing everything I was doing during the 2.5 years of the trial. And frankly, he's still appealing, and he's lost 5 times. And as of Yes, he appealed again, and on November 15th, 2025, he lost his appeal of my case to the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Does he
So,
have any room left to continue appealing? Like, what is he?
oh no, he owes me a lot of money from the jury. You know what I mean? It's like you're spending all your money on lawyers over your lie. Just
So
all
as he
I want.
appeals, he's also deferring the payment to you. Is that
Yes.
okay?
Well, technically, I could go after him with a collections attorney, and
Okay.
I'm working on that. But
Okay.
it's not about the
No,
money.
I
And
get it.
one of the things too is I think we have to change our mindset. And one of the big things I changed my mindset of was I thought justice was going to be winning the trial. I won the trial. I was shouting at the rooftops, but then it fell flat because I still held on to all the anger, the bitterness, the resentment. Everything was about Don and what he was doing to me. until I flipped it around and said, no more. I'm going to release the control. I'm going to release the anger. I'm going to release the bitterness. And I am going to turn it around and make this about me and what I need to be whole and what I need to be fulfilled and what I need to move my life forward. And it has nothing to do with him and everything to do with my family and my friends and my coworkers. That's how you live forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And okay, well, so this speaks to something that I was taught very early in my healing journey, like early 20s. My naturopath, who did a lot of different things than most naturopaths do, very spiritual. And I went to go see her for something. And of course, over the time, we started working on my relationship with my father and how at odds him and I were becoming. We hit a critical point when I was 24, and where he disowned me. And so there was a lot of pain and resentment that was building up there. And she said to me, she says, "Well, Nicole, what if your father were not around? What if he had passed today and you could never get the I'm sorry or whatever it is that you need from him? How would you then move forward?"
Yep.
And it was like, I was like, well, of course, at that age and that time, I just never thought of the possibility. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Of course, how he's here, so he has to. Like, you just kind of come up with all these
Right.
things. And then she's like, no, she goes, it's on you. She goes, you don't give away your power to someone
Exactly.
else.
Yep.
And so it was a
That's what I
very,
mean.
yeah, it was a very early lesson that I learned. And then from that point, I learned to accept my father for exactly how he is and understood that
Mhm.
he's just doing the best that he knows how, given the life that he lived, which was a very difficult childhood. He had a very abusive father. And
Mhm.
so when I really put things into perspective, I'm like, I'm actually even shocked that he was able to be the father to me that he was, given what he went through as a child, right?
Sure.
So, but it's true, like we tend to give a lot of our personal power away to people, making our healing conditional on what they're going to give us back.
Yep, that was the apology.
Yeah.
That was the apology. That was the trial. Okay, if he apologizes, then I'm healed. If I win the trial, then I'm healed. And that's not at all what it's about.
Hmm.
It's about going, what do I need for me to move my life forward? You make a very great point, Nicole.
Yeah. And so you letting go was very crucial. And it was, um, it was necessary. It was absolutely necessary, no matter if you lost the trial, won the trial, got an apology, didn't get an apology, no matter where, those were just icings on the cake, right? Like
Right.
that's just
Yep.
all that was. It's obviously it helps. It's a nice to have kind of thing, but of course, I think when we're going through these kinds of deeper traumatic healing journeys, there's an important part of recognizing that a lot of it stems from having your power taken away from you.
Right, right. And that's what I mean. Don't let anybody touch your soul. That's your power. That is yours to own and yours to move life forward with. I mean, I love it. I love how you've talked about it. That's your power. Your soul is you. And no
Hmm.
one can touch who you truly are.
No. And a lot of transformation comes from the willingness to take ownership of your own power. Doesn't
Yep.
mean you weren't a victim. Doesn't mean that, that didn't happen to you. But, given where you are right now, you always have that choice of reclaiming it, taking it back, owning it so that you can then move forward. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I love to work with people in their healing journey is reclaiming that power, because without reclaiming it, the healing will never be complete.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in the book, we talk about the sexual assaults, but that's not what the book is about. It's not about, the assaults and what they did to me and the pain that I endured, but it's about what I did to grow, what I did to heal, what I did in my resilience, and how I was able to move my life forward. It's actually becomes a very positive story at the end, and hopefully readers will understand the lessons that come from letting it all go, even after you've gone through the trauma. Because you are not your trauma. That's what we all have to say to ourselves, right?
No, I know. We can easily identify with a lot of things that make it a lot more difficult to become and move forward in the ways that we want to. So I'm curious, while you were writing your memoir, because I wrote a book myself that was a little kind of like, I always say it was just like an eat, pray, love version of my own journey of self-love and how I discovered that and like healed myself through that. Um, for me, I found the book to actually incorporate another layer of my healing. Where as I was writing, it was almost like I was going outside of myself and getting a bigger perspective on things that I'd never seen. Did you ever have that while you were writing your book?
Absolutely. And for me, because I still work full time, I actually hired a ghostwriter through my publisher to help me write it. And it was amazing. It was super cathartic. It was, she would ask my story and she would question me on things, almost like, you and I are going back and forth on this podcast today. And her identifying and be almost a third party going, what do you mean by that? What is that? She actually brought out more memories that I didn't even know that I had. And
Wow.
through writing the book, I just kept healing and healing and healing more. It was an incredible experience. And I would highly recommend anyone who's gone through traumatic life experiences like you and I have to, if you don't write a memoir or write a book like we are, put it in a journal, just get it out of your system because it is part of the healing process.
You know, so I'm really into astrology. I talk about it on my podcast and I use it actually to help look and see what someone's healing journey will be most effectively impacted with accuracy, precision, speed, like so that we're actually focusing on the thing that actually matters. And I think everyone knowing that, next year we'll have the planet Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini for the next 7 years. And this will happen at the end of April, I believe it is. And so what Uranus represents is liberation. It is the breakdown to the breakthrough. It is about setting yourself free. Um,
My.
and so when we have that moving into the sign of Gemini, which is the sign of communication, so writing, speaking, okay, all of that, all of those kinds of things, using your ideas, it can be, I think, for everyone. I've always said this, like if you can write a book, even if you never publish it, if you can
Right.
do a podcast, even if
Mm.
you never publish it, but you
Yep.
listen to it, like there's something about using your voice, whether it's through writing, speaking, whatever it is, it can be extremely healing in your process and journey. And so I think considering that we have this planet coming into that Gemini sign, I think the next 7 years we may see even more than now, more people starting podcasts, more people writing books, which I am a huge supporter of. Like
Hmm.
at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter if anyone reads my book or not. It was such a blessing and gift to me in my own journey.
Yes.
So it's, if it helps other people, great, bonus, but for
Oh, yeah.
me, it gave me way more than I ever expected. And I think there is a journey in itself through the idea of writing a book because it is not easy. And or even having a ghostwriter. I think that was really beautiful that you shared that because a lot of people might think, well, mate, that's not really me, it's someone else. But look what it did for you. It brought out more memories. It helped you connect even deeper to
Yep.
your
Yep.
healing
Yep.
journey. So
Right.
I think there's a lot of ways to skin this cat.
I think so too, and it's just so interesting because, writing the book just really helped me understand, and even going on these podcasts. I kid you not, Nicole, if you had me on your podcast October of a year ago, I would have been a complete wreck. I would have been in tears. I would have been crying. I would have not been able to get any words out because it was still so fresh and so new in me. So by writing the book, we just got it to the publisher the end of August. And now going on these podcasts, look how different I am. Look how I've changed. Look how I'm able to tell my story. And I've always said, just like you said, even if I help just one person by telling my story, I've won because I've healed. And that's what really matters is
Mhm.
I'm hoping I'm going to help thousands of other people and some of your listeners as well. But just kind of getting it all out there is what really makes the difference and what really matters.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. So 1 year, that is a huge transformation then for yourself.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, a lot of people might think that that kind of trauma would take years and years and years and years and years of now, not to say that, there's probably little things lingering there that you can still look at and all that kind of stuff, but the majority, the big stuff,
Yep.
easily,
Yep.
you've done a lot of work that within a year is is healed. For me, I was able to do like the big stuff in like 4 months or so. I was like, I found the forgiveness for my abuser, and I was like, I
Yes.
released it, I let it go. I'm like, I don't identify with this story anymore, not because I'm resisting it, I don't want to. It's just because it's done. I understand. I've learned the lesson. I know why I needed to go through it. I know why he did this to me. I understand it all, but the healing was there. And so that idea of being able to let go, it's not something that you can force. It's something you arrive at
Yes.
through your own willingness to heal, it'll probably come up when you least expect it too, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, and it's a constant. Somebody had asked me, now that you've let go, are you done? And I'm like, no, you're never done in life. The week before Thanksgiving, I got hit with three traumatic experiences. Monday, I was going in for a breast mammogram, not knowing if I had cancer. Tuesday, before Thanksgiving, I found out my job is no longer in existence at my company and I'm being moved to another job at half the pay. And then Wednesday, I found out that my brother filed another appeal to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And I'm like, how many hits can I take in 1 week? But I had faith and I confided in my friends, confided in my husband, and I cried it out. But Friday just ended up being a beautiful day. I don't have cancer. My job's going to be okay. And the North Carolina Court of Appeals rejected my brother's fifth suit against me. I mean, you have to have faith. And in the toughest moments is when you figure out, how do I get back up? How do I climb forward? How do I know that I'm a spiritual being that can't be hurt?
And not only that, but in order for you to go to your next level, which you are already on your way to, you have to be strengthened in order to receive it, right? There's
Yeah.
a whole lot more responsibility. There's a whole lot more that you're going to be holding. And so God, the universe, will put you through a strengthening process that comes through as challenges and tribulations and all of those things that are like, why, when's it going to
Right.
stop, but truly what it is it's building you into the person that you need to be to receive what you have already declared is yours.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. That
Yeah.
is so true. Yeah.
So you are already on your way and you are going to be more than well supported where you're headed to. So I'm very, very proud of
Absolutely.
you for sharing this story and for, I'm sure as the next few months unfold and your book is coming out, it's going to be a whole nother experience and all of that. So I want to wish you all the success with your book and let my listeners know where they can, is there a pre-order? Like how does it all work?
Sure. So for now, because the book isn't quite done yet, it's with the publisher. You can go on my website, which is Darlene-Lekowski.com. And spelling of my last name is Lekowski. So LEKOWSKI.com. And on there, it says sign up for book updates. And in there, I do emails about once every 6 weeks, but then eventually we'll be doing the pre-orders of my memoir as well. And then follow me on Instagram at Darlene Lekowski. And I'm also Facebook under Darlene Deloy, which is my maiden name, Lekowski. So
Okay.
multiple ways to follow me, but would love to have you or any of your listeners join my email list. That would be amazing.
Wonderful. Well, I will leave all of the links in the podcast notes and in the show notes below the video if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify or any other of the wonderful podcast platforms. Go ahead and support Darlene. And if you guys know anyone who may have gone through something, this might be a wonderful gift to give them or to send them Darlene's way. Uh, Having resources is one of the most important parts of this journey, and understanding that you're not alone is crucial. So let other people know that you know that may need to have more support because support is, again, paramount in this journey. So thank you, Darlene, for coming on the show and to my audience. I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know this was a powerful, powerful episode. And guys, I will see you next time. Thanks again for joining me for another show on the Enlighten Up podcast. I love you guys so much for all of your continued support. So remember to raise your vibe, find your tribe, and be open to the infinite possibilities held in the mysteries that surround us all. Thanks again for sharing the show with your family and friends. And if you're new to the show and you need to find out more information about me, please head on over to my website, NicoleFrolick.com, where you can join my newsletter. And please follow me on Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube. Keep your light bright, and I'll see you next week.